Thank you. I'm Pat. Thank you, and thank you to the hall for including me in this this class. It was certainly somewhat of a surprise. I have never set any world records, or I have never done some of these great athletic accomplishments that I hear about, and Patsy and her many years with teaching. But in 1980, my son was born with a developmental disability. I grew up in the 22nd Treat neighborhood in the 1950s, 60s. And if you all remember those years, it was get on your bike after school, gather up all the neighborhood kids, and go play basketball, baseball, football, whatever it may be. And those years is when I first became involved in sports and realized how important it was for people to be involved in that, kids to be involved in that. And I certainly wanted that for my son. At that time, he was involved in Special Olympics, which I can't say enough about. But when Challenger Little League came along in 1990, Little League Baseball introduced a division of Little League for kids with disabilities. During that time, I was president for a while, and during that time, the league here in Tucson grew to the largest Challenger Little League program in the world. We had over 255 kids playing at the Tucson Conquistadors Field of Dreams Park. Judy, thank you so much. I can't say enough about the Tucson Conquistadors. And I think you all know that. Also, Jim Click was a huge donator to that field, and certainly thank him. So we went on and became we had kids of all abilities, we were invited to the Little League World Series, where we played an exhibition game in Williamsport. If you have not been to the Little League World Series, put it on your list. It is one of the most amazing things you'll ever see. You've got 40,000 people around a 200-foot Little League field. Very incredible. I highly recommend it. So there, you know, to do what we did, and I do say we, to put together a program like that, it took a lot of people. A lot of them, of course, aren't here, but we had a great board. We had a great group of people that were all invested, mostly with their children, but not always, in getting their kids out to play ball. There are a few people at my tables back there that I want to recognize. Jim Talmadge, Tucson High graduate. You probably all know his name. He was a teacher at Sam Hughes. And he's always, I've known him since the neighborhood over on Beverly, and he was kind of our neighborhood organizer. We would have track meets in the alley. Well, we would build pole vault pits, which didn't last too long. The parents said, you can't do that. And whatever it was. And I think Jim will remember this. When we weren't outside playing, he had a roulette table in his house that we all learned how to gamble on. So, Jim, thank you. My sister-in-law was not able to be here. Diane, a year and a half ago, I lost my brother to pancreatic cancer. He was by far my utmost supporter, supported me through all of this time I needed to give up to get the fields going and everything. So I'm sorry she wasn't able to be here. And there was a few people in Little League. Back at the table back there, Gene, would you wave your hand? Gene Burnett, District Administrator for District 5 Little League. He was involved in Little League, president of CDO Little League, coach for 35 years. So when you talk about people that give of their time for our youth, certainly Gene falls into that category. And along with his wife, Darlene, which was District 12's Little League district administrator. She was involved in Little League for 25 years. And with them also is Steve Leffler. Steve's back there. Steve has been involved in Little League for 45 years. He was president of Thornydale Little League when they had 1,400 players, 26 major teams. Can you imagine putting together a Little League with 1,400 kids? He had, good thing they didn't have cell phones back there because people couldn't get a hold of him. And anyway, Steve, what we accomplished with Challenger, I couldn't have done it without you. You were a mentor to me in the Little League process, as was Gene and Darlene, and I thank the three of you very much for what you've done for Tucson's youth. When my son got old enough to where he could not play in Little League anymore, my interest turned toward Special Olympics. We formed a program down at the Field of Dreams, and we put together 3 competitive teams that play competitively in the Special Olympic program. Actually, we just got back yesterday. We were at the state tournament yesterday. 3 of our teams were up there. One took gold, one took silver, or 2 of us took silver. But these are kids that a lot of them have played in Challenger. They're now in their 20s, and they are quite accomplished at playing softball, believe me. I also have some of my athletes here today. I'd like them to stand up. Please, guys. I asked one of them if I could bring their medal up here. This is from the 2015 World Games. 4 of these gentlemen in the blue shirts there were selected to the World Games, and they participated on the USA team. They came home with a gold medal. These guys played at a very high level. I couldn't be proud of them. 3 of them, Alex, Jose, and Mikey, raise your hands, guys. These guys started in our program 20 years ago when we first started. They're still playing. Jose recently had a medical issue where he's had to retire last year, but we figured that in the 20 years, he has been our pitcher in every game we've ever played. He's won 2 World Series games. We competed at Oklahoma City for the National Special Olympic Games, and also at the USA Games in Seattle, where we came in second, played for the championship, and just came up a little bit short. Couldn't be prouder of these guys. Excellent young men, and I appreciate your friendship. And every coach, I think, will say, you're only as good as your players. Well, that's the truth. So thank you, guys. I do want to mention Ruben. Ruben, raise your hand there. Ruben is part of the, on our team, but he also is part of the Sunnyside program, which is probably, in my opinion, the best Special Olympic program in the city. Great family atmosphere, excellent athletes that compete to a high level, and Ruben came over to our team because he's a really good softball player, and they didn't have softball. But Ruben has been a leader. He's a natural leader, and he is the heir apparent to the coach of this team, right? Thank you. I'll be real quick. I know maybe I'm running a little long, but I did want to say one thing here. I'm a great admirer of Eunice Shriver. I'm sure you all know the story of Special Olympics, how it was developed, and what an amazing person she was. And I'd written this little thing a couple years ago for a speech I'd done, and I just wanted to have a chance to say this now. So how did we get here? One person, the sister of a young girl with intellectual disabilities, took it upon herself to open the world to thousands of individuals with intellectual disabilities and their families. Eunice Kennedy Shriver realized her vision of creating a world who saw people with intellectual disabilities as equal. She saw that they were excluded, routinely placed in institutions, often ignored and neglected. 50 years ago, July 1968, the first International Special Olympic Games were held in Chicago. Here were her remarks during the opening ceremonies. She said, "The inaugural Chicago Special Olympics prove a very fundamental fact that children and adults with intellectual disabilities can be exceptional athletes and that through sports they can realize their potential for growth." She pledged that the new organization, Special Olympics, would offer people with intellectual disabilities everywhere the chance to play, the chance to compete, and the chance to grow. Thank you.